I was walking along in my lawn where I have these unmowed clovers for the pollinators. I have a few elderberry trees, but I noticed something that looked familiar to me. And it's something that I didn't intentionally plant here, and it's right next to my dog, Fiende. It's right there. I actually almost stepped on it, but I noticed it is a seedling that I recognize. I believe this is a pumpkin. They look similar to squash, and I have both around the yard, so it could be one or the other. That seedling looks really similar to what these pumpkins started out as, and this bigger pumpkin that I have over here. I actually just cut this grass yesterday, but this seedling survived through me coming through this area with a lawnmower. So I think that's a good enough sign that I should let him exist. And what I'm gonna do for this little guy is I'm gonna go get some of these grass clippings that I use to keep the lawn from encroaching into this bed. I'm gonna borrow a few of those, and I am going to make a nice little area for this little seedling where he can be protected, and these grass clippings can start to kill off the grass surrounding him. And look at that, he's got a nice little nest where he can grow up big and strong. I think he'll actually do pretty well here because these other pumpkins needed almost no encouragement. All I did for these guys was actually bury a rotten pumpkin right here in the soil. I didn't do anything else, and they all just came up like this. And some of them are already starting to try to put out flowers. But this little volunteer seedling must have sprouted out from a seed that just fell out of my hands when I was bringing the pumpkin this way to bury it in the bed right there. He's a vigorous little guy because he came up literally in this thick grass, which is pretty insane. I don't think I'm gonna do anything at all for this seedling unless I really see him struggling a lot. And you may be thinking, how in the world is he gonna survive here? Well, I'm in a climate where I don't even water this bed at all to get all of this lush green foliage. I have tons of potatoes and a bunch of radishes going to seed in this big beautiful pumpkin here. So I think this seedling could actually get adequate water right here, and pumpkins are super aggressive with their growth once it heats up. But I may need to figure out what to do with this whole area once everything grows in, because between this pumpkin seedling right here, that little lot of pumpkins there on the corner, and this bigger one that's thriving over there, this whole area of my yard is probably going to become a pumpkin patch, and it might start to kill off some of my grass as those vines sprawl out and shade out the grass, and then especially if it develops pumpkins that will put a lot of weight down on the grass. But I think I'm okay with that if this area just becomes a sprawling wild pumpkin patch. I obviously don't have a super traditional lawn. I'm putting these elderberry trees in the middle of my lawn. I'm letting the clover grow big and long for the pollinators. And I even have this little circle right here that I haven't mowed for about 2 years. And it has become a really cool looking little long grass meadow. And these grasses are probably 2 or 3 feet now at this point. So we'll see how this little guy does. I have high hopes for him. I think he's gonna grow up big and strong like his friend over there. And this is the first set of leaves, but he's already got a second set of leaves starting to develop there. So I think, you know, with a little bit more rain here, it's gonna start to take off. You may be thinking, why not just transplant him into a space where I know he'll thrive? That's just not how I roll. I love to see what volunteer plants can do without me interfering at all. Because these pumpkins over here in the corner, I know they're not spaced out properly, and they're kind of just growing on top of each other, versus this other one right here, which has adequate space. It's just a one lone pumpkin growing on the edge of this bed here, and he's obviously doing a lot better. But if I were to space all these out properly, I wouldn't get to see the progress and compare these two and learn from a real life experience exactly what spacing will do for a pumpkin. And we'll see overall what the results will be of the competition of the growth between these two lots of pumpkins. In addition to those pumpkins over there, I'll then get to compare those to this little seedling which came up in the middle of my grass. I love to do experiments with volunteer plants, and a prime example of that is right up there on the back fence, all that vine growing right there. That vine on the fence over there is actually a volunteer wild grapevine. I did not even plant this grape. I saw it coming up right there in the middle of all my hostas, and I thought, what is that? Should I let it go? But I did, and now I've got all this wild grapevine growth on the fence next to my pool right here. And I'm not sure how these grapes will taste, or if I'll even get any, because the birds have been absolutely stripping them off here. But even if I don't get any grapes from this grapevine, that's okay, because it gave the birds something to eat. And I think the birds attacking these grapes and just stripping them off the vine might be acting as a pretty good trap crop to keep them away from the other varieties of grapes that I have planted near my house over there. But even if none of that is true, these grapes over here on the fence are still acting as a really good privacy screen and a cool vining look along my pool area. But enough about the grapes, let's get back to this seedling right here. The reason I put these grass clippings down was to smother the lawn, like I said, and I do that for a lot of the trees that I'm growing in my lawn. And let me show you after a few weeks or so what this grass looks like underneath. It just really starts to decompose and turn into soil that the plant can then benefit from and won't have competition from the surrounding grass clippings. And then these grass clippings that I put down will eventually decompose and become something that the plant can use as fuel to keep growing. That's what I'm doing here for this little seedling. I'm hoping the same thing will happen and I'll get some at least decent results. I'm gonna try not to fertilize at all or add water unless I see him absolutely struggling. Will this seedling survive? I think so, but let me know your thoughts.